Everyone's heard of the famous tongue twister, how much wood could a woodchuck wood if a woodchuck could chuck wood? But what if we stop for a moment and actually try to figure it out? I mean, it is just a playful tongue twister, or is there a real answer hiding beneath the surface? Today, we're diving deep into the woods, no pun intended, to break down how much wood a woodchuck could chuck wood, if it actually could. Keep watching to find out. But first, we need to explore how this question even came to be what it is today. The tongue twister first appeared in 1902 in a song written by Robert Harbert Davis. The song was performed in the musical The Runaways, and the song became more well known in 1904 when Theodore Morse wrote a new version, which was performed by Bob Roberts.
How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck would?
The phrase became a tongue twister and was documented as folklore in 1972, which leads to the question, what actually are woodchucks? Groundhogs, also known as woodchucks, are large burrowing rodents native to North America. They are members of the squirrel family and are famous for their role in Groundhog Day, where it is believed they can predict the weather. Groundhogs are excellent diggers, creating complex tunnel systems to live in, and they are primarily herbivores, feeding on grasses, fruits, and vegetables. A common misconception is that woodchucks eat trees and carve wood out of trees, but their name actually derives from when English settlers arrived in North America in the early 1600s. And the name woodchuck likely came from the misinterpretation of the Algonquin word woodchuck or wedjack that the Native Americans gave to the groundhog. Based on this information, woodchucks don't actually eat wood, they only sometimes chew on it. Or do they? In an article called The Ability of Woodchucks to Chuck Cellulose Fiber, 12 adult male woodchucks were deprived of nourishment, and then they were presented wood as their only source of food. That's pretty fucked up if you ask me, but it's for science, I guess. They found that the average woodchuck can in fact chuck wood, and at a rate of 362 cubic centimeters per day. Since the groundhogs ate from a 2x4 piece of wood, we can assume the wood's density is 0.65 grams per cubic centimeter. Using this information, we can calculate that the groundhogs were able to chuck 0.518 pounds or 0.2 kilograms of wood per day. A woodchuck's lifespan is about 3 to 4 years. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say he lived his full lifespan of 4. There are 1,461 days in 4 years. But wait! Woodchucks typically hibernate for 4 to 5 months, from late October to early March, which is about 135 days. 135 times 4 years equals 540 days the groundhog spends hibernating. 1,461 subtracted by 540 gives us 921 days the woodchuck is able to chuck wood. So 921 times 0.518 pounds would mean the average woodchuck could chuck, aka eat, 477 pounds or 216 kilograms of wood in its lifetime, if it adapted to this diet and could chuck wood. But that is just if they ate it. Another way the tongue twister can be interpreted is calculating how much dirt a woodchuck can chuck when digging, as chuck is another word for move, and converting the weight of dirt chucked to wood, which I like to call, how much ground could a groundhog hog if a groundhog could hog ground? Which leads to a study conducted in 1988 by a wildlife biologist named Richard Thomas. He aimed to estimate how much wood a woodchuck could theoretically chuck, based on the amount of dirt they move when digging burrows. According to Thomas's calculations, on average, a woodchuck will move about 35 cubic feet of dirt when digging a burrow. By his logic, 35 cubic feet times 20 pounds of dirt per cubic foot would mean a woodchuck could chuck 700 pounds or 317.5 kilograms of wood. That fact made it onto Jeopardy, newspapers worldwide, and is the most popular and general accepted answer for the question, literally anywhere you search. People just took his word for it. But I don't know what Richard Thomas was smoking when he made these calculations. Richard believed a cubic foot of dirt weighed 20 pounds. For moist soil, a reasonable average weight for 1 cubic foot of dirt would be around 100 to 110 pounds. This is because the soil is wetter and denser the further you go down, and groundhog burrows are typically 6 feet deep. This leads to the dimensions of an average woodchuck burrow. I found online that the average woodchuck burrow is 14 feet in length, 20 feet in width, and 6 feet in depth. This would mean the volume of the average woodchuck burrow would be 1,680 cubic feet. This is likely bullshit, because if you were to fill 1,680 cubic feet with water, you would have 12,000 gallons of water, since 1 cubic foot of water is about 7.48 gallons. This is enough water to fill up an entire swimming pool. What could a groundhog possibly be doing with an entire swimming pool of living space underground? These numbers are likely counterfeit, so we're actually going to go with Richard Thomas's measurement of a woodchuck's burrow at 35 cubic feet. So the correct and actual amount of wood a woodchuck could chuck according to Richard Thomas's formula, if he used the correct weight of dirt per cubic foot, the woodchuck could now chuck 3,850 pounds or 1,746 kilograms of dirt. To put this in perspective, that's almost 2,000 bags of cement, each weighing about 20 pounds. 80 large bending machines stacked up on top of each other, and the wood the woodchuck could now chuck would roughly be 2 trees worth of wood, both being 50 feet tall with a 12-inch diameter at breast height. But hey, this still makes no sense. How could the woodchuck possibly move this type of weight in one go? It's a lot of rodent that sleeps for 73% of its life and goes around stealing vegetables? Well, you're absolutely fucking right. Because Richard Thomas Thunder fucked his calculations so unbelievably hard, his splooge of misinformation spread so unfathomably far into every crevice of the internet. Every single piece of information on this topic is tainted by his god-awful excuse for an answer to this question. I can't find a single piece of reliable information anywhere because no one thought to look close enough and think, hey, a cubic foot of dirt is pretty big. It can't only be 20 fucking pounds. Moral of the story, don't believe everything you read on the internet. The only way we could possibly know the exact amount of dirt a woodchuck could chuck is if you weighed the dirt they flung out of the entrance of their hole. Well, count your lucky stars because after hours of digging, I found the answer. In the book The World of the Woodchuck, W.J. Schoonmaker excavated a significant amount of woodchuck dens and measured the average amount of earth a woodchuck would excavate when digging their burrow is 384 pounds, which is 174.6 kilograms. Therefore, a woodchuck could chuck 384 pounds of wood, which is 15.4% the weight of a typical mature tree. So if someone were to ask you how much wood could a woodchuck wood if a woodchuck could chuck wood, the answer is 477 pounds of wood chucked if it ate it, or 384 pounds of wood chucked if it was able to move it, aka when digging its burrow. Like the video if you think Richard Thomas's asshole is jealous of his mouth from the amount of shit that comes out of it. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.